Alright guys, I'm going to show you a quick demo of the new Meshery, just to give you an idea of what it can do and how to use it. I'll try to do more in-depth videos as we go, but before I cut this new official release for our new engine fuse, I figured I'd give you a little preview. So once you download Meshery and extract it, you should be able to just run it from wherever you extracted it from. The first prompt you'll get is to install the required tools. So to process LiDAR data and different like elevation model files, we need some tools locally to do that, and this will install them for you. Generally, I would just leave the location, the one it comes up with as is, unless you have a real need to change it. You're always really going to want to install these tools in just a separate safe location on your computer, just outside of the Meshery app or your course files. So this one just puts it right in my home directory, and it'll create that folder when it installs. So let's try this. Hopefully it goes well, and takes a while, so we'll just kind of fast forward here as it goes. Okay, looks like it finished. If you want to, you can check that folder, make sure it worked, but you're going to trust that it worked. So now you'll come to the home screen, where it'll usually list any recent projects you're working on, or let you create a new or open a project. So we'll start with just a new project because we don't have any yet. And it'll prompt you to basically create your project folder. So let's call this course demo. And then I'm going to call this course number 1. So now course number 1 is created, and we're presented with a map here. And what you're going to want to do is go find the course you want to build on the map. So let's say I come down here in Colorado. This is where we're at, and I'm going to just do an easy kind of course I know that should work, just to show you. So this one's a nice square, which is great for our needs because we'll want to define the center point of our course, and it'll add a square, and we can adjust sort of the size of the course map. And we will always want to capture just a little bit around the course. Make sure we get it all. Make sure that the holes on the sides are playable. So I'm just going to do a full kilometer here. Yeah. This other generate button is for if you don't want to use real world terrain at all, and you just want to define a course size and then generate or edit terrain later. I'll do a separate video for that, showing how that works. For now, once you've got your course location set and your size set, you want to come down to the second tab, Terrain, and choose from your terrain source data. And I know people have asked for the ability to import LiDAR or DEM files, and I'm working on that in the next version, but wanted to get this out here just for people to start building with. So here I have one LiDAR source, which is much higher res. If you want like green slopes and different high detail stuff, you'll want to find a LiDAR source. If you just want to build a simple course, maybe your just local course to be able to play it, Maps and DEM is like 5 to 30 meter resolution. So it'll give you the general sort of hills and stuff of the course, but it's available globally. So you kind of have two options right now. We'll show you the LiDAR version. It's pretty easy. At this point, you just select the source you want, and then download. And this part also will take a while. Okay, so the LiDAR finished. Everything looks like it went well. We'll click done, and if it worked right, you should start to see your terrain stats up here. The size, the min-max, and the height. Next, we'll want to go to that next layer down as coarse layers. And usually what I like to do first is generate my hillshade. It'll generate a hillshade image from that LiDAR we just processed. And it's a good way to check that everything looks normal. So once it generates, hit that little visibility icon, and you should be able to see your hillshade overlaid on your map there. And so what I usually look for is making sure there's no like big black areas. That means that there was missing data, and you might have to go fix that in the terrain editor. Which brings me to another point. If anything looks off, or you do find you have artifacts like whatever this building here is that got captured, or sometimes there'll be some like tree cover points around, you can come back up to terrain and you can click edit terrain, and you basically have kind of like a Unity style terrain editor. So you have some different brush options, smooth dig, things like that, and you can go in here and smooth out or raise or lower different parts of your terrain. So if we move a little bit over to where all this stuff is, I could do a set height, and I can do shift click to sample the height around it. So if I hold shift and I click, and I get an idea that most of this is about 8 meters high. So then you can come through and just smooth out, flatten, any of that kind of stuff. And then we'll just save it. And usually we're working on a system so you can like save and restore. So it'll prompt you to save a new edit of this raw. Do that. And then we'll go back to coarse layers here. And we will generate a satellite. And what I like to do is come up here to the map layers, turn off my hillshade, and you can preview what Google and Bing look like. And there's also a third option, ArcGIS, that we've added. Sometimes they have nicer colors, but it's lower resolution. So I do recommend a Google or a Bing satellite. So if Bing looks correct, we'll come up here and generate, and we'll select Bing. And this will also take a while to download all the like different tiles that it needs for the very high res image. So we'll fast forward here again. Okay, so satellite's done. The next one we'll want is our SVG now, because you want to do the hillshade and satellite before you generate the SVG so you can include them in your SVG. So once we click generate here, it'll give us options to include satellite, include hillshade, and a new sort of magic feature which pulls from the OpenStreetMap shape database for golf courses. So before I do this, if you are on your OpenStreetMap and you see these holes and fairways and shapes, if you have that on your map, on your course, generally means there'll be shapes available. So if I go search shapes, and it tells me that there's 72 shapes available for this course, I'm going to include them, and then I'm going to export my SVG, which I saved my project folder here. And it should start to paint the shapes it found. It'll generally just show you your SVG on this map as you go. So if you switch back to satellite, you can see how things are lining up here. And for now, you'll still need to edit your SVG in a program like Inkscape. So let's find Inkscape. Pretty sure I've got it on this computer. Sure enough, I do. Maybe. One thing you will need for your Inkscape setup is the color palette. So the color palette lets the software know which shape is which surface, like fairways or bunkers or things like that. So you want to come up to Tools in Meshery, generate Inkscape palette, and then save this Inkscape palette somewhere you can find it. So I'm just going to put it in my Documents folder for now. But you want to move it into the folder. If you come up to Inkscape, I think, and you do Preferences, edit Preferences. And then there should be, under System, you should see User Palettes, and it'll tell you that there's a folder on your computer for user palettes. Go ahead and open it. And then you're going to want to find that palette we just exported, OpenGolfSim palette.gpl, drag it into your Inkscape palettes, and then you may need to relaunch Inkscape here just to make sure it pulls it in. Okay, and then way in the bottom corner here you should see a little hamburger menu, and you want to grab the latest OpenGolfSim surfaces. You should see a bunch of colors down here that represent all your different shapes. So now if I open my SVG, let's see if I can find this here. Yes, course builds, fuse, course demo. Okay, so here's the SVG I just generated. When we open it, you should see you got satellite images. They're in a folder called Overlays. So I've got my Bing and I've got my hillshade, and I can kind of toggle between them. And then I've got a folder here that says course. And you can see all my different surfaces are here. They're labeled. It doesn't matter what the label is, we just do that so you can tell them apart. What matters is the color here. So if I wanted to, let's say it was missing this this bunker and I wanted to draw one, you come up here and you grab the pen tool, and then you'd select sand down here, and then you would draw your sand trap. I'm going to do a really rough one just to power through this, but you probably really want to trace this a little bit better. So that's how you would basically add all your course shapes and things. If you didn't have OpenStreetMap data, you'd have to go in and add all of them. So for now, let's hit save. Let's go back into Meshery, and what we can probably see, if you make any changes in Inkscape, you want to come back and do reload from disk, and that'll update the SVG. See this little sand trap we edited just changed, and that's for right now the manual way of sort of keeping things in sync. So once you have a general sort of course outlined with shapes, you want to come into Meshery and define your holes. So you would add hole 1, let's say it's a par 5, and then you click these little pin icon and you can set your tee position, you can set your pin position, and then if you need to on a par 4 or par 5, we recommend adding an aim point. So we've got one hole defined now. You can always come in here and edit and move these around a little bit better. There's still some bugs here, I think. But for the most part, you can get some holes defined. You can go through and do, you know, as many as you want. T, aim, and then pin, and then we'd set this to par 4. So go through, add all your holes, and then once you've got a course looking pretty good in 2D here, we switch over to the Meshes tab, and the first thing we want to do is generate meshes. And it'll first bring up some settings. Usually the defaults are fine if you don't know what you're doing, but if you wanted to, you could come in and edit the tri-spacing, some of the dig settings, things like that, and then generate your message. In this part, depending on the size of your course, how many shapes you have, could take a little while to do each one. Usually the base mesh, which covers your whole course anywhere there's not a shape. So we'll fill in all the negative space with a base mesh. And that one's usually big and complex, so it takes kind of a while to get through that one, but it should speed up as it gets to your smaller shapes. There you go, fairways and things. Okay, so our meshes have been generated, and you can now kind of right click and zoom around the scene to see your new course. Yeah, there's a bug there I gotta fix. So you should be able to select the different objects that it generated, and you can double click to kind of zoom into that level, which also helps with camera zoom issues. If you get sort of disoriented, just find a shape, double click on it, and zoom into it. So you'll see bunkers do have some dig to them, but when you select this bunker, you can come and dig it out more. You can add different settings for how deep you want your bunkers to play. The dig distance is basically how steep of a dig it is. So you can kind of shallow it out but make the whole depth at the bottom a little bit bigger. You do the same thing with lakes and rivers. And that's, for the most part, all you need is a minimum requirement. The next thing I'll show you real quick is a planning layer. So planning layers allow for auto sort of tree generation. So if I add a planning layer, I expand it here, and I select plant object, and let's just grab this fir tree, which we'll have to download first and then import. And you won't see anything yet, and that's because you need to come up and edit the layer. It'll bring up a whole separate little editor here. And all you want to do is paint the area, like little spots where you want trees. So if I just add a bunch of spots here, just paint this in. I want trees there, I want trees all in this group here. And then you can do something like this to get your trees clustered there. And you hit save. Let's go find where that part of the map was. We should have trees now. So here it is over here. Again, I double click on a shape over here and I'll zoom over. So you can see how easy it was to mass plant these trees on the course. And you can add maybe a second tree to the mix, and it will sort of randomize them and plant them. You can also select the tree over here and then adjust the density. So I saw that oak tree kind of took over. So what I want to do is reduce the density a little bit, and then I might reduce the scale range. So it'll plant smaller and bigger trees. And then I might come up to the fir and just increase the scale range up for this one. So they look a little bit more like a natural forest here. One more pump up. There we go. So yeah, you can do that. You can come back and basically fill in your whole course with trees and things you need. The next one is sky and environment, so you can adjust the clouds and the sky color. If you want a really blue sky, you can add that. If you were designing some crazy course that for some reason had, yellow clouds, you could do that. You can also add, in this new version, a skybox HDRI. I don't have an example to show you there yet on this computer, but ambient CG is a good place to grab skyboxes, and they do sometimes look a little bit better than the rendered clouds. And that's basically the minimum requirements to get a course built. Once you've got some holes defined over here and you've got your meshes generated and some trees planted over here, you can export the course, which will export a GLB file, which is what the new Fuse engine works with. And it'll also take your course map image that you need and export it all into that one file. And it'll ask you to save it. Save GLB. And this will take a while as well because it's going to compress all your textures down to make that file as small as possible. Okay, we've got our course GLB, and let's try, just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and run my little dev version of our OpenGalsum desktop because this is my dev machine, but you would generally just open the app as long as it's 1.18.1 or higher. It should allow you to find this option up here called Test Course GLB, and then we're just going to go find that one we just exported right there, and it should let us launch and play this course, or at least the two holes that we defined on it. And there we go. It's my crazy sky, which looks pretty broken right now. I'll have to look into that. But we're on hole 1, which is the par 5 we defined with an aim point, and we should be able to play. Yeah, that's the basic quick version of our course building process. It's going to refine and work better as we go. Still quite a few bugs, so if you're nervous about bugs or having a bad time, you might wait a version or two till we iron more stuff out. But if you're eager to start building and help us find some bugs, we encourage you to download it and give it a try. So let me know what you think. If you got any feature or bug requests, let me know in Discord, and I'll talk to you guys later.